What's up guys, welcome back to another Baki video. If you're new here and enjoy Baki content, make sure to subscribe and join the Discord to talk more about Baki's greatness. Now onto the video. So today I'm ranking the 5 prisoners from the most evil death row convict saga and ranking them from weakest to strongest. Not on terms of physical strength, just on the basis of fighting, based on how well they performed against the other Baki characters and my own opinion as well. Let me know down in the comments your ranking for them as I go as well, and let's go. So in 5th place, my opinion of the weakest prisoner is Skrowski, the Russian prisoner. His age is 27 and his fighting style is brute force, in particular his grip strength as his biggest asset and most powerful weapon. So throughout his time in his arc and even after his arc when we get to see his training isn't the best that we've seen in the Revenge Tokyo episode we got from the most recent Baki season, which was pretty much him increasing his grip strength by, while sleeping, he would hang onto the side of the wall, and it appears he's able to grip onto pretty much things there's absolutely no surface anymore, because when he was first introduced it was mentioned that the pretty much missile hole he was in, there was tiny little scratches on the sides which was allowed him to grip onto it and get him out, but he's improved his grip strength even more so he can pretty much grip onto this any kind of surface at this point. But when it comes to fighting and during the most evil death row convict saga, he was kind of bodied a lot during the time. He was scared shitless by an enraged Baki who punched him out of a window, and then when he had his fight against Gaia he got absolutely stomped, and then after that, or before that as well, he got stomped by Jack Hanma as well. He got all these L's and didn't really get any dubs. He was able to defeat this other dude, but to be fair, that dude was kind of trash and isn't anywhere near mid-tier for Baki characters, so Skrowski is the weakest character for the death row inmates in my opinion. Up next we have Hector Doyle, age about 25, and the prisoner from Great Britain. His fighting style is a mix of brute force plus hidden weapons, with a more emphasis on his hidden weapons and mysterious tactics to defeat his opponents. He was beaten by the likes of Kairetsu and Katsumi Orochi until he was finally fully defeated by Biscuit Oliver, who pretty much fucks him up to, next level where he's given up, surrendered up. I faced defeat, got his goal. During his training in Revenge Tokyo, he's currently in the jail and training himself. He gained the ability to hear insanely well after being blinded, because he was blinded by the end of the saga, but he deafened himself, which a big Chad movie brings up in the Chad scale. He deafened himself, and now that his sense of touch is so good, he can literally feel the vibrations of sound that make him hear and feel the world around him without being able to see, which is pretty interesting and kind of insane to think about. One loses his eyes, like, oh, okay, time to heighten my hearing sense. He heightens his hearing sense to like an insane degree. He's like, what if I get rid of my hearing? What's gonna happen then? Oh, bang, gets rid of his hearing. He's like, I can touch and feel everything now, bro. Crazy. Hector's absolute mad lad Chad. I think his training is like a bit more extreme and it's kind of limiting himself, but it's probably gonna turn him to an absolute monster if we ever eventually get to see him fully fight again after his training is concluded. And he's also just such a fun character to watch fight, with his metal blades hidden within himself. He has like a bomb hidden in with himself, and it's just fun to see what he comes up with all his fights. And if your fighter isn't ready, or if you're not 100% aware when you're fighting him, a knife could come out of his asshole out of nowhere and stab you in the head. Like, you need to be fully awake when fighting this dude, but he was bodied quite easily. And when it comes to martial arts or physical ability, he's probably one of the weakest, but based on his training and based on the insanity of Hector Doyle, I'm going to put him above Skrowski, but I think those two are pretty strong when it comes to the prisoners. Up next we have Yanagi, current age 50, the prisoner from Japan, and fighting style is Way of the Void, which is pretty much using his poison hands to fight. His fight throughout the series was mainly against Baki, first where he was able to poison Baki, which was the whole issue going into the Rotai tournament and him getting killed by the other poison user during the Rotai tournament. This is all due to Yanagi. But when it comes to pretty much fighting ability, he isn't the best. He's better than average or better than most mid-tier Baki characters, but at any of the higher tiers he gets absolutely destroyed when it comes to fighting, such as shown when he was completely bodied by Motobi, but he refused to give up until our boy, the ultimate Chad, Yujiro Hanma, came in and absolutely bodied him, destroyed his face, and that's where he pretty much admitted defeat. And during the Revenge Tokyo episode, it was shown that he was able to escape prison once again and pretty much massacre the guards there, and being one of the only people who has escaped prison since all the convicts have gone back to prison, which is something to note. And only his ability to escape grip, which is another interesting thing to do. His vacuum palm technique can knock out his opponents with oxygen, or rather lack therefore. His palm allows him to vacuum out oxygen from the air that his opponent breathes in and pretty much knocks him out with absolute ease. So his main weapon is pretty much his hacks, hands, hacks abilities. Doesn't have any real strength or like insane base martial arts level. Just has his OP hands to use his weapon. So if you just cut off his hands, easy dub for that. But that's all we have for Yanagi. I also consider him close to Hector and Skrowski, but I don't think he's nowhere near the top two. I think the top two I'm about to talk about are for sure the strongest two prisoners and on a tier above the other three. Up next in second place we have Speck. Current age is 97, one of the oldest characters in the whole series, and considering his age you need to respect his ability to be this strong as well. His origin is from the USA and his fighting style is also brute force and just wherever the fuck out. Speck is just a madman, probably my favorite prisoner in the whole bunch. It's an absolute Chad madlord. His fights involved against Baki Hanma where Baki, he kind of just kicked Baki a couple times, kicked him while he's down. Baki didn't really fight back, so it wasn't really much of a fight. His real and only real fight he had during the arc was against Hanayama, probably one of the best fights, if not the best fight that we got that early in the series. It's probably easy top 5 that we've had in the whole series still. Speck vs Hanayama was just a top tier fight. The gore, the struggle of it was just greatness. Hanayama was able to win with immense damage and pretty much immense difficulty, so you can assume that Speck is on the higher levels of prisoners, or is on the top 2 prisoners, and can go against high level Baki fighters. Hanayama has got stronger since this arc, but still at that point Hanayama was one of the top fighters in Baki, and Speck was able to give him a hard time and do some real damage to him. But an issue to consider about him, after his fight he was bedridden until currently in Revenge Tokyo we get to see him again, but is somehow moving his body in such a way that it's like he's swimming in pretty much thick liquid while he's pretty much knocked out unconscious almost, or on the brink of death. He's training his body to give himself back strength, which is insane considering his age 97. He's not the oldest character, there is older stronger characters that we've seen throughout the series, but considering his age and how he's able to train such an insane way while he's just laying in bed on the brink of death is really insane. But considering his age and his lack of tankiness, I didn't want to put him at number 1, and number 1 is an absolute monster. But it's just good to see Speck. His fighting was great, his fight was probably the best out of all the prisoners we've gotten in the series, which is just absolute hype and greatness. Love to see more Speck. Hopefully when we get to see more of Revenge Tokyo and more of the prisoners. My favorite one, let me know your favorite prisoner down in the comments. Now on to number 1, and of course number 1 is Hector Dorian. Current age is 65, also from the USA, but you can also consider his origin being from China, and he's also a Kaya. As we know, the Ratai tournament was the battle of the Kayas to see who'll be the new Grandmaster Kaya or who'll be named the next Kaya, and he, as we know, he was pretty much disabled during that, so he got bodied by his opponent, but it's still funny to see his little crazy attack out of nowhere. His fighting style is Chinese Kempo with a mix of various other hidden weapons and other crazy brawling techniques that he uses out of nowhere, and he's also a character that will go to any means to secure that dub and don't want to face defeat. He was able to pretty much fuck up Dopporochi for the most part. His final defeat was against Kairitsu. He was fucked up by Dopporochi eventually after a bit. He was able to send people on fire and do a lot of damage to the characters, and he probably had the most fights out of any of the prisoners in the whole series in my opinion, or pretty much the most close fights, which was interesting to see. His training, even though he is disabled after what happened to him in the Great Chinese Saga or the Ratai Tournament Saga, he was decided to decide the real Kaya with Biscuit Oliver appearing at his magic. It was showing that Dorian chews candy at a time, but his mind is pretty much a child, and now in pretty much Revenge Tokyo we see that he's training even though he is a child. Pretty much he sits there, he eats candy, just chilling, does paintings, but while doing that he's doing a deep, super deep squat with sweat going everywhere. He's gained like 20 or so or 30 kilos from sitting in this deep squat of this pure muscle from being in the squat for so long, making him look like an absolute thick Chad. And as I mentioned, his fights Dopporochi, Katsumirochi and Kairetsu, and he also had the battle in the right Daytona, but I wouldn't really consider that a battle because his mind's pretty much destroyed at that point. But in my opinion, between him and Speck are definitely a tier above the other three fighters, maybe even 2 tiers above the other 3 fighters. In my opinion, the other 3 fighters don't really have much going for them, while these 2 can actually fight against the, the mid to high level Baki fighters, which just proves how strong they are and how they're a tier above the other 3 fighters who pretty much got bodied by the same type of people. So that's it for the, ranking the most evil death row inmates from weakest to strongest. Let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed the video. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? If I had to change something, you could argue that Speck is over Dorian, but I think the others are stable as they are, and I think it's a pretty good list. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, subscribe, leave a like, join the Discord, and that's it guys. Peace.